All right, we are back with another 2021 MLB Draft episode tonight. We brought the heat. We got Ryan Cusick out of Wake Forest. Tall righty Ryan. How you doing tonight, man?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, we've also got Ian Smith here. I didn't introduce my boy Ian. He's my co-host tonight. Ian, I'm going to throw it over to you. Why don't you kick things off?
Well, man, just glad to have you here tonight, Ryan. Now, just talk to me about your summer a little bit. I know you were planning to be in the Cape Cod League, but ended up being in the Coastal Plains League. Ended up being an extremely loud summer for you. Just talk to me a little bit how that went.
Yeah, so going into it, I knew I was going to go back to the Bourne Braves on the Cape. I played for them last summer after my freshman year. And we found out in April, we thought that we were going to get a decision in May whether the Cape League was going to happen, and it came a little early in April. And once I found that out, literally the next day, Coach Walter at Wake, he calls me and says, "Don't worry, I got a spot for you." And he told me, Brendan Tinsman, Michael Turconi, and Shane Smith, our four guys in our class, that we have a spot with the High Toms in the Coastal Plain League. And I hadn't heard of that team a whole lot, but once I got down there, it was an awesome setup. And, I got a bunch of starts, got a bunch of innings, and it was just a great summer.
How did you keep your arm fresh? Because I know a lot of people were dealing with the shutdown and re-ramping up and things like that. Did you have any downtime to, I guess, let it stiffen up, if you will?
So we found out that the season was going to be canceled on the bus ride back from Coastal Carolina. I was supposed to start against Clemson that following night. So I was told that we're going to take a 2-week hiatus, and we're going to stay hot. We're going to stay at school and continue to work out. So I actually stayed on campus for 2.5 weeks until after we got shut down, until we were finally we ended up getting kicked off of campus. We were literally the last ones there. So we thought that it was going to be just 2 weeks, then turn into a month. But I got back home. I ended up taking a week off, and then I started prepping for the summer. I knew that there was going to be some opportunity to play, whether it was in the Cape, Team USA, some other kind of league. So I continued a long toss. So Jared Schuster, who was another one of our starters on our team, he lives an hour away from me, and we actually met every day halfway in between us at the Bourne Braves field. I was staying on the Cape, and we long with a couple other of my buddies. So I was staying hot. And then all of a sudden it got into that late April, early May period. And I knew that I couldn't go right into the summer and be ready to throw 100% unless I was throwing pens and against live competition. So I exhausted all my contacts. I was I drove to face Chris Lanzilli, who lives an hour from me in Massachusetts, and I faced him for a day and a couple of his hitter buddies. And then the next week I faced Henry Davis. I faced him earlier in March, and he lives in New York, 4 hours away from me. But we just kind of looked at the map. I lived here, he lived here. We just kind of were like, all right, I'm going to pick this high school. So we found this random high school that was open, and I faced him for probably threw 60 pitches, and I was up to at that point. And so he saw me for 15 at bats.
How'd it go? You got to tell us how it went. 2 first-round potential guys.
Well, in fairness to him, he hadn't seen live pitching in a while, so it was an unfair match.
Yeah, here's 100, Henry.
Yeah, that's unfair.
Yeah, so it was kind of an unfair matchup, but honestly, he was just happy to see live pitching. Even if he was just taking a pitch and just seeing what velo looked like, he was just happy to be there. But he put some good swings on it. He's one of the toughest at bats I've faced. So it was a good day for both of us, learning wise.
Nice, man.
That's awesome. It seems like you got enough baseball in the summer. I mean, more baseball this summer than a lot of people did. And we know about the velo and how good the fastball is. How do you feel like the development on your changeup and your slider came along this summer?
Yeah, so that was a big thing. I felt like I was able to get an extra 10 starts that everyone else wasn't able to get. 7 in regular season, and then 3 starts in exhibitions while we're still getting warmed up. So I ended up throwing 35, 40 innings down there, and just being able to continue to shape the breaking ball. I felt like I was making a stride every single time out in the spring through inter squads, and then through my 4 starts. I felt like it was just getting better and better and more consistent, often like off speed does. And then the changeup was something that I just kind of adopted once I went home from Wake during quarantine. I had the time on my hands, and I was working with Jared Schuster, who has a great changeup. So I was picking his brain, and honestly, the amount of times that we were just tossing it back and forth. And, another one of my friends, Mike Doherty, changeup in his repertoire. So we would literally, me and Mike would sit on a couch. I'd sit on a chair like 30 feet away from each other and just go just working on that side spin on the changeup. So,
Interesting.
so I was starting to shape the pitch, and it's not something that you can just snap your fingers and it comes overnight with these off speed. It's all about feel. So I felt like it was a perfect opportunity to have the end of March, April, May, June, July, August. That's 5 months right there. And just to be able to kind of slowly crawl through and then walk through and then run through, be comfortable at each stage. And then all of a sudden, when I get into live games in July and August, I'm starting to throw it in competitive counts, and I'm starting to shape the pitches when I'm behind in counts to steal first strike. And then once I can land a first strike on both pitches, now I'm working on throwing it first swing and miss when I'm up 0-2, 1-2. So it was kind of a slow progression, but that's how it's going to always be. So I thought that I made huge strides this summer, and honestly, I'm just so thankful for the High Toms and the Coastal Plains League for getting us out there. I felt like we're the only team or league that was playing in the whole country, and it just allowed my progress to flourish.
Do you happen to have a baseball with you? I want to see how you grip that slider, because everyone grips it a little bit different, and your slider has so much sweep. It doesn't dive as much as other sliders, but man, it just sweeps away from righties. Can you kind of show us how you throw that pitch and kind of your thought process?
Yeah, so it was a slider my sophomore year. And then when I came back to play for the High Toms, we started working on, instead of being in that slider category, we started thinking it's gonna play better off the fastball once we get into curveball. So I was originally holding it like this, kind of across the seams, just right here. And once I decided to make the switch, because my fastball has high induced vertical, to have something perfectly mirror it and have a breaking pitch with the most negative induced vertical possible, I started using the same grip, but thinking curveball and trying to kind of karate chop with that wrist. And then I ended up, once I got back here in the fall, and after I shut down, it kind of made sense to switch the grip a little bit. And because I'm throwing a four seam, why not throw a four seam when I get perfect, ideally 100% spin efficiency? Why, if it's back spinning with my fastball, why not have it try to kind of transitioned from a slider in the spring to a slurve in the summer, and now it's kind of that power curve that I'm just holding in a traditional curveball reverse horseshoe grip.
So really, really quick, Ian, let me just play off that. So it's a traditional 12-6. So you're trying to 12-6 it. I don't think I properly introduced your fastball to our listeners. Ryan here is the proud owner of the biggest max velo from 2020 of any pitcher in college baseball, according to TrackMan, at 97.9. And yeah, ton of extension, ton of induced vertical break. It really rides up on hitters. So now that you've changed from the sweep over to the traditional 12-6, and you've kind of already answered this, but obviously you're going to try to karate chop and throw that 12-6, but have you eliminated the cutter, the slider, or are those still kind of being deployed? Or do you plan on deploying them when you get back on the mound?
So basically the thought process is the slider, it had great shape. It was in that the shape that we're looking at Rapsodo. The magic number was 744. When I was at the 744 clock, that was my ideal shape, and it was a true slider at that form. But since my fastball runs in a 1230 to 1250 clock, to completely mirror that, we are shooting for a curveball that's going to be between 630 to 7. So that's when it's at the best curveball shape. The slider is a great weapon, and I think maybe next year, 3 years down the road, I'm going to be a guy with 2 breaking balls. But for now, when I'm just trying to focus on one breaking pitch to supplement and complement my fastball, it's basically going to play better off with a curveball than a slider. But I was really comfortable with my slider, and I think it's going to be a weapon down the road.
See, this is why I love Wake. This is why I love Wake, man. They're data driven and they set you up for success. But yeah, I love it, man. Ian, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, just really leaning on the Wake thing right there. It's pretty much almost 3 years to the day. I think last week you officially signed to go to Wake, and like I said, 3 years. What do you think Wake has done for you as a pitcher and as a person over the last 3 years?
To be honest, going to Wake was the best decision of my life. To grow here as a pitcher for the last 2.5 years with Coach Hendricks, I've just made unbelievable strides. Coming from the Northeast, hadn't played a ton of baseball. I throw 40 innings a spring compared to guys around the whole country that are throwing 150 innings throughout their year. To be able to come right in as a freshman, throw 70 innings, and then go down the K6, that the opportunity has led to my success. So I feel like I'm a guy that has never taken a step back. I'm every single step of the way, I'm progressing on a linear path and growing with every stride that I take. The pitching lab, it's been huge in my development, just to have that numerical data to support the progress that I've been making, and knowing that I'm trending in the right direction, and to have checkpoints every month, every 2 months, and to know these are the drills that I need to do. And then 2 months later, these drills worked, these drills didn't, these are the drills I need to go from here. So, and these are the things that I need to do in order to get where I want to be. So to have the opportunity to throw innings during my first 2 years has been huge. And the coaching staff with Evan Wise, the pitching coordinator, and John Hendricks, the pitching coach, those guys have been so invested in my development, and it's been the best decision of my life to go to Wake Forest.
Speaking of that pitching lab, talk to us a little bit more about the data, because I can speak for Ian. We really love that stuff. I've got your fastball around 2,400, which is pretty good. And then the slider is what I had previously from your sophomore year, and that was around 2,200. Have you seen any improvements in those two as you continue to kind of change the orientation of your fastball, and then obviously get into that 12-6 curveball? Anything change there?
Yeah, so the big thing that we kind of talk about on our pitching staff is that we go in, and when we look at the numbers, our ego goes out the door. So I had the highest fastball recorded in the country last year, and I changed my fastball grip this fall. So even though I had success with it in the past, I threw my ego out the door, and I said, I want to try and see if it can get even better. So I completely changed my fastball grip, and with that has come a few more RPMs on the fastball, and more importantly, an increased spin efficiency on the fastball, which is making it easier to locate and also jacking up the induced vertical break. So that combination of the high spin rate and the high spin efficiency has just allowed my fastball to start jumping out of my hand. And with the breaking ball, it's been cool to monitor it, because breaking ball is such a field pitch. It started out as my freshman year when I was throwing my slider. My breaking ball was around 1,900, 1,950, which is very below average for a breaking ball. Then last year, now this year I just threw live last Thursday, and 2,400 RPMs on the breaking ball. So it's cool to track this progress as I'm changing my grips, as I'm changing the way I orient my hand. So I can kind of I can play trial and error a little bit with each time that I go out there, and not too much. I mean, it turns into overanalyzing if you're looking too much into the data, and it's important to keep that competition mentality when you're out of the mound. I'm never on the mound facing a hitter thinking, I'm going to try to get to 2,500 RPMs, or I'm trying to see this one at 25 induced vertical break. That's never a thought that goes through my mind, but it's something that the next day I analyze. I look at the numbers. I talk to Coach Hendricks about the numbers, and then I go from there. So,
really quick, as a quick segue, what sort of IVB are you getting on the fastball? Because you've thrown out numbers like 25 and it catches someone's attention.
That was my first thought.
Yeah. So
what are you getting?
So there's a little bit discrepancy between TrackMan and Rapsodo. So
right.
On Rapsodo, my induced vertical has been 17, 18, which is fairly lower than the normal TrackMan. When I was throwing live on Thursday, my top induced vertical was, I think, 24.7. So that combined with my low release point and far extension out in front from a 6.6 build, it ends up kind of perceiving as the ball literally rising.
Yeah, I wrote all about that. It's a terrifying at bat.
Yeah, the fact that you understand the data so much is extremely refreshing to hear. Like, you can really take what you're reading and what you're analyzing and do something with it. I think there was maybe 15 guys in the entire 2020 draft class that had a high efficiency, high velo fastball, and the fact that you're trying to strive for that is extremely important to go. And all those guys got paid last year, so that's awesome to hear, man. I mean, it's really not a question here; just awesome to hear about your data analysis and what you can do with it right now.
Yeah, thank you. It seems like each week, each month, it seems like I'm kind of adopting a new form of how to understand the data. So last year it was really understanding the breaking ball clock, and now we're really shooting for breaking ball spin efficiency, which we see the clock is a result of the spin efficiency, and that ends up translating to vertical break, horizontal break, and stuff like that. So
absolutely.
Well, I mean, I don't want to keep you too long. I've really got just one more question, then Ian, of course, I'll throw it over to you. We got 8 months, 9 months between now and next July. You've come so far since stepping foot on campus at Wake Forest. What do you hope to learn, or how do you hope to grow in the next 8 to 9 months as you prepare to set yourself up for your junior year and for pro teams?
The way that I'm looking at it is all these people, all the coaches have helped me so much, and all my teammates have helped me so much along the way through these first 2 years. What I really want to do is I want to lead this team to where we want to get. We've been looking for that Omaha berth, and this year we're going to get there. So that's my main goal, and I think all those other flashy things are going to come along with it. But honestly, I'm tunnel vision right now. I'm just looking forward to getting out there. Going to get 16 starts and trying to compete and get my team a win all 16 times.
Can't argue with that.
Yeah, I don't think anybody wants to hear that. But yeah, I don't have anything more for you tonight. I think we've got everything. This has been a fantastic interview so far, Brian. This has been great. I appreciate you coming on with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been fun.
All right, man. Well, we're not even going to throw you any strange or silly questions, because I think you kept everyone on their toes with all your data. So we're going to leave it at that. Ryan, it's been a pleasure. Ian and I can speak. We're obviously big fans. We like your arsenal. We like what you bring to the mound, and we look forward to rooting for you and seeing what happens with your junior year.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, guys.